Howdy, everybody, and welcome to the Plant Roundup for plants we love but don't know why for June of 2026. This month's theme is phenomenal ficus. The ficus genus has over 800 different species and happens to be one of my favorites. We highlighted four different and very unique ficuses, but honestly, that's only the tip of the iceberg. There's so many different interesting ficuses that you could have your own wonderful world of ficus. But with that said, let's do a quick recap of each ficus we highlighted this month and then total up the average rad rating for this month. First up is banyan tree. The banyan tree is the national tree of India and is an iconic tree, I would say, almost throughout the world. You have the giant one out in Hawaii, which was damaged in a fire but is coming back. And that's a really interesting story. I highly recommend you checking out if you have any interest in that. You have the ones in South Florida, which populate everywhere from, I believe it's about Sarasota down. They're all over the Key West and the Keys themselves, and a really unique site. That's personally where I saw my first banyan tree, and is a spectacle I'll never forget. But the banyan tree themselves are so iconic that any tree that develops those prop roots, those aerial prop roots, that hit the ground and start to thicken into those columns or those pillars, have been distinguished or are classified as a banyan style or banyaning style. It's even used to describe many different bonsais that grow this way, and is a super neat tree on its own. I personally love banyan trees. I have one in my personal plant collection, and it's about 4 feet tall, and it has definitely put on about a foot of growth this year alone, which I'm super excited for. Every year or every time it gets cold, I bring it inside to keep it warm so it doesn't get damaged in those low temperatures. But honestly, I love it, and I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen as it gets bigger and bigger, and I still have to bring it inside. Next up is the sacred fig. When I was doing research into the ficuses to highlight for this month's theme, the sacred fig just jumped off the page. I haven't really had a lot of experience with the sacred fig in the past. I have heard the name, but doing the research for this month, putting together that plants we love but don't know why highlight for the sacred fig, just gave me a whole new love for the tree. I also watched a documentary about the start of Buddhism and the importance of the sacred fig to the Buddhist culture, and I believe they call it the Bodhi tree, and that just really solidified it as one of my favorite ficuses. Shortly after that, I was even lucky enough to see a sacred fig growing, and it was just coming back from some cold damage we received here this past winter. But it had some brand new leaves on it, and honestly, they were just amazing. That really long leaf apex that separates them from the other members of the ficus family is something I was just memorized by. At the time, I didn't have the tools, you could say, to collect a proper leaf sample. But now that I know where the tree is, the next time I'm in its vicinity, I'm definitely going to collect a leaf sample to just have and save. Maybe even press it like they do with those art styles. I won't paint on it or anything, just enjoy it in its natural shape. So next up is rubber tree. There's a lot of confusion with the rubber tree between the Hevea brasiliensis, that's the rubber tree that's used for the actual rubber production, and then the Ficus elastica, and that's the rubber tree which we highlighted in our plants we love but don't know why weekly spotlight, and the one that belongs to the Ficus genus, that is Ficus elastica. The Ficus elastica rubber tree is also sometimes referred to as the Indian rubber tree, just to help make that distinction between the two. But among plant shoppers and many people looking at plants simply for the ornamental values or the aesthetic purposes, they refer to as a rubber tree. So here at the Wonderful World of Plants, we felt that was the way to go with this one. But with that said, rubber trees are one of the most I guess unique would be the great word to describe them. They have so many different variegations. I like to say various variegations to them, and that there just ensures that there's a combination for everybody to fall in love with. My personal favorite, I shared it in the writings, but it's that white margin with the two green colors in the center. I just love it so much. Out of my about 6 rubber trees I have in my collection, I believe 4 of them are of that variegation pattern. Hopefully one day I can get every or a rubber tree of every variegation pattern, and then I could consider myself a true rubber tree collector. But really, the most phenomenal fact about the rubber tree is how they were sculpted and molded into the different or into bridges in some parts of their native range in India. I thought that was such a unique fact, and something I would want to do one day would be to cross a bridge made of rubber trees. That'd be a really cool thing to do. Last but not least, the common fig, Ficus carica. So it's not a fruit and it's not a vegetable. It's really a inverted flower we're eating. That fleshy part on the outside is known as the receptacle, or it's kind of the part that holds the entire flower. The fig is comparable to a strawberry in the both that the fleshy part that we eat is a swollen receptacle, but they are still very different. The common fig has deep roots in all throughout humanity's history. There's references to common fig leaves in the story of Adam and Eve. In ancient Greece, the common fig has a big role and play and comes up multiple times. And even you can see this in the native range, as it is almost impossible to pin down because it has been cultivated for so many centuries around the Mediterranean area that nobody knows for sure exactly where it started. I love common figs. I really enjoy them in a kind of a mash or a spread. I think that's the best way to eat them. But, everybody has their own taste and everybody likes their own bites. Here we are at the RAD rating average. Some stellar scores this month with Banyan Tree at 8.2 out of 10, Sacred Fig at 8.4 out of 10, Rubber Tree 8.3 out of 10, and then the Common Fig at 8.6 out of 10, giving the theme Phenomenal Ficus a average RAD rating of 8.4 out of 10. Before we go, there are two updates I wanted to share with you. These are taking place over on our Substack, which is serving as our home base for now, but there may be a change coming, so keep an eye out for that. The first is the introduction of the RAD rated plant archive. So each plant from our Plants We Love But Don't Know Why highlights conclude with a RAD rating, and then the RAD rating for that month's theme is totaled up and averaged here in a plant roundup video. Now, there is a compiled list, which starts off with the reasoning behind the RAD rating scores, goes into where each plant stacks up against one another, and then it shows the average RAD rating for each month's theme. It's neat to see what plants fall into the same ratings and the other plants that they are close to. The second is the wonderful diagrams. This is a helpful living document of different diagrams which I feel could be useful in navigating this wonderful world of plants. They are also totally free to download and use. All you have to do is click on the diagram, and then in the corner there will be a download button, and simple as that. Currently, there's a diagram about parts of a flower, which was done in part of our latest deep dive, which I highly recommend you check out. It's here on our YouTube channel. And then there is the newest and most useful for this month's theme, a diagram of parts of a common fig, Ficus carica. Check those out when you get a chance, and shoot us a message if you think there's a diagram you would like to see or something you would like explained better, and we would be happy to help create that. I thank you very much for joining us here at the Wonderful World of Plants Roundup for June of 2026. You can see the full write-ups for each of these plants, including a breakdown of the exact RAD ratings on our Substack. The link will be in the description as well as in our bio. Each month has a theme. For the first 4 weeks of that month, we will cover a new plant for that theme. Then, on the final week, we will do a plant roundup just like this, where we reveal the theme, give a quick overview of the plants, and average out the RAD ratings. Follow us on Instagram at Wonderful World of Plants for update. Check out our weekly writings on Substack, and look here on YouTube for our deep dives. And remember, plants are way cooler than they let on.